It is now my utmost honor to call upon stage Dr. Mushtaq Khan, Professor of Economics of SOAS University of London, to present his inaugural speech. The theme of the speech would be Bangladesh at the Crossroads, Rethinking Politics, Economy, and Geopolitical Strategy. Sir, would you do the honors?
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the Honorable Foreign Affairs Advisor of Bangladesh, Tawhid Hussain, and distinguished guests, academics from all over the world. I'm here simply because I'm one of the mentors of this fantastic new organization called DAIRA. So I will introduce DAIRA a little, but also talk about what this conference is about, what it aims to achieve. So DAIRA is one of the organizations that were thrown up by the uprising of 2024. The uprising of 2024 created a huge churn of young people all across Bangladesh. It wasn't just Dhaka, it wasn't just the public universities, it was the private universities, the schools, colleges, madrasas, people who were not in education, rickshaw pullers and small shopkeepers, workers, fathers and mothers, all political parties except for the ruling coalition. Everybody in Bangladesh was behind that uprising. And through that process, a social churn began in Bangladesh, which is now throwing up a lot of new thinking and new activists and new organizations. DAIRA is one of them, and people like me, we are mentoring them, and we are trying to help them to develop the capacities to think and imagine the new Bangladesh. This entire conference was organized by young people with no help from the older people like us. We wanted them to take the front stage. We wanted them to take the lead in organizing everything. And I think whatever glitches you will find, it's a learning process. And they have done it entirely on their own, these youngsters who were in the movement from Dhaka University and other places. You will see their faces. And I hope over the next 2 days, those of you who are from outside Bangladesh will spend more time with them than with us, that you will develop your networks, your relationships, you will know their names, and you will keep in touch and you will interact with them. This is the hope of this conference, apart from raising a lot of questions about where we are going. After 1 year, many people have disappointment about where we have reached. They're disappointed about the behavior of the political parties. Others are disappointed with the achievements of the government. Many are disappointed with the law and order situation. Many are disappointed with the progress of reforms. Many are disappointed with the trials of the people who were killers and thieves. And there's disappointment about what is happening there. There is disappointment. But I want to stress the huge achievement that Bangladesh achieved in 2024. That was an uprising led by unarmed citizens against one of the most vicious and repressive and murderous regimes in this region, which in the space of barely 1 month killed more than 1,000 people, unarmed people, and yet they won, yet they overcame. And we saw pictures of Palestine, we saw pictures of Myanmar, we saw pictures of other countries. This is a country which has repeatedly overthrown dictatorships, repeatedly churned up new movements. It's important to remember that this conference is called the Bengal Delta Conference for a reason. The Delta creates our identity, our politics and sociology, and our culture. The Delta is a place of shifting rivers, of changing landscapes, and this affects the mentality of the Bangladeshi person. No, this is the fertile area where was the breadbasket of the Mughal Empire, where the cotton textile industry started, where the British first came, an empire started from Bengal. It was in Dhaka that the Muslim League was formed. It was in East Bengal that the biggest support for the Muslim League emerged. The Muslim League won a bigger percentage of votes in Bengal than it did in Punjab. It was in Dhaka that the anti-Pakistan movement began. It was in Dhaka that the end of Pakistan as it joined up country emerged. It was in Dhaka that the anti-Ershad movement happened. It was in Bangladesh that one autocracy was overthrown. And in 2024, the most severe and repressive autocracy, which now people have the courage to call fascism, was again overthrown. So if you look at the history of Bangladesh, of this delta has a history of movements against repression which are usually successful. And I think that what happened last year is irreversible in some respects. And I think I want to just set out what was irreversible, and then through the next 2 days, we will discuss in great detail the politics, economics, and geopolitics of what has happened. Let's take the economics first. The economic model of the Hasina regime, which was based on a huge concentration of political and economic power, a few politicians and a few oligarchs decided on the path of development. This was celebrated all across the world as a Bangladesh model of development. It was going to take us into new places. And yet, many of us knew that this economic model would collapse. It was based on an excessive centralization of power, which resulted in massive and uncontrolled theft, so that the infrastructure that was built at 2 or 3 times its real price. Roads, bridges, and power stations were built at excessive prices, but no industry developed to use those infrastructure, leaving the country in unsustainable debt. And the Western countries and India and all the friends of the regime refused to see the problem, despite many of us pointing it out. I remember I was at a meeting with Mr. Tawhid before the 2024 elections with some foreign dignitaries, and both of us were saying, this government will collapse. It is unsustainable. And the external countries were all saying, no, this will survive. Many Bangladeshi academics insisted it will survive. But those of us who understood what was going on inside knew it was built on sand. Now, the problem is that the power structure on which this model was based, the people who have power, that power structure has not shifted that much after August. This is the disappointment. The disappointment is that the way in which that power structure should have been taken on and dismantled has not happened. And a lot of students, a lot of citizens are frustrated with that. But while that is true, I am optimistic. Why? Because if that old power structure comes back under new names and new party symbols and new leadership, but the real people are unchanged, they will still be unable to deliver anything. There will still not be the economic development, the job creation, meeting the aspirations of the millions of people who are coming into the job market, who are out on the streets looking for jobs. It will not be able to solve the problems of health and education. And therefore, within a few months, something else will happen. We hope that the politicians of Bangladesh, both who are in power and who are waiting to come to power, understand that going back to the old political settlement is not feasible. So even though we have not succeeded in dismantling them, the reconstitution of that old political settlement will not survive because it will not be able to deliver the jobs, the health, the education, what people now want and will not compromise on anymore. So this is one achievement. And I think this process of changing that political settlement and coming up with a new economic agenda which is going to create jobs, develop the middle sectors of the economy, is one of the things we will discuss in this conference. In the same way, another topic of this conference will be the politics. And again, the idea that we will go back to the old politics after the elections with a number of parties competing about the spoils of the system and using the spoils to buy power in the old client list way. So before the Awami League regime, from around 1990 to about 2006, we had a kind of competitive client list economy, politics, where you have two largely corrupt parties competing with each other, and they would replace each other every 5 years. That didn't work too well either, because that created a lot of violence, that created a lot of instability. But what followed, the Awami League authoritarian regime from 2009 onwards was much worse. So it is true that if we go back from the one-party system to the two-party system, that would be better. But again, I think that the people of Bangladesh will not accept the 2006 model either. They will not want to go back to that kind of corrupt parties competing for, although that is better than what we had, it's not good enough. So I think that the politics itself has to be opened up. Now, there's a lot of discussion in Bangladesh about a new constitution, or at least changing the old constitution so that there are more checks and balances, but I think it needs more fundamental things. It needs us to rethink how parties are funded, where they get their money from, who they are accountable to, who they answer to. Those are very difficult questions, which are political questions, not constitutional questions. They're about the organization of power. So we go back again to who has power and how you change it. The last theme of this conference is the geopolitics and regional politics, the role of Bangladesh in the region. And here too, there is a vibrant, live reimagining going on amongst our young people. The young people who came out of that uprising have changed all the old ways of thinking. It's no longer this old tired debate of are we Bengali, are we Bangladeshi, are we Muslim Bengalis or Bengali Muslims? These debates are all old. What the young people want is a new way of imagining our future, and this new way of imagining the Delta. And I started with how the Delta has been so important to our imagination. The Bay of Bengal has been so important to our imagination. We want to open up and take an active role. So far, Bangladesh has been passive. The British came here, the others came here, everybody came here. They control this region because of its huge strategic importance. Going forward, Bangladesh wants to become and will become an agency in its own right. It's almost 200 million people, its opportunities. It is a big player in the region, but it hasn't exerted itself. And what we heard Professor Yunus saying in the clip that we just saw is reimagining a region which is open, which is not just for one or two countries, but for everyone. So if the Chinese want to develop, if the Americans want to develop, if the Turks want to develop, if the Indians want to develop, if the Indonesians want to develop, everyone should compete. Everyone should compete. Why not even the Pakistanis? Why not even the Brazilians? Why not everyone? This region should be open, and it should be a hub for global exchanges, and we reimagine the Bay of Bengal, we reimagine the Delta, and we come out of these old, tired debates about who is Hindu, who is Muslim, who is what, right? And I think that is what the spirit of what Professor Yunus is saying, and that spirit is captured by our young people, and our young people will reimagine Bangladesh. I'm absolutely sure about that. So those are the three themes that will cover the next 2 days: the issues of economy, of politics, and the region. And I hope you will enjoy, and keep in mind that this whole conference is organized by young people with no experience of doing anything. And if you hear their stories of what being a student in Bangladesh was like under the Awami League, you will cry. You will be upset beyond belief at the repression and control that the old regime had over every educational establishment. That's gone. The young people are now talking their minds, and some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't make sense. This is democracy. And out of that will come new imaginings and new futures. So welcome again, thank you, and enjoy yourselves for the next 2 days. Thank you.